This is my poem. Okay. God is a Dominatrix is the title. During the Reign of Terror, a Basque priest was known for goods smuggled in coffins to feed those beyond the border. Mock funeral processions left authorities with hot tears on cold cheeks. The food cross-through held high with ease. His expertise in deceiving was taught to him by God. She loves to remind men with their laws and their leather. They cannot stand in the face of death. They will be made fools. I told you, feed the hungry. I told you, love your neighbor. I told you, I'm here. I told you, I am everywhere. Respects must be paid. Get on your knees. You are not daddy. I am. I love it. Yeah, a little religious, political resistance poem.
Hi, I'm Corrin. This podcast is called The Ache, an ode to the existential ache of being human, that still small-voice tugging inside every single one of us, prompting us to change, move, grow, become more of our authentic selves. This is conversations with people who dance with the ache.
And just for fun, I'll give you guys context, which you can cut out if it's boring. But I have a script that I've been researching and outlining for about summer 21 was the first time I started. So about 3 years. And I kind of think I won't write it until I'm like in my 50s. But I won't go into the whole thing, but it has to do with a Jewish female bloodline and then the Basque people of the southwest of Spain or northwest of Spain, southwest of France. And that language, the Basque language, is etymologically unique and not of a language family, and those people are in one place, and it's just really fascinating. So I have this big kind of epic family drama, feminine study that I've been researching for a long time, and a lot of that has just been historical research on the Basque people. And I was reading one of these books. It was like about cheese farmers in the mountains over there, and I wrote this poem.
That's the voice of Nika Burnett, a filmmaker, philosopher, photographer, poet, and a friend of mine. She's thoughtful, intelligent, and overwhelmingly interesting. We were set up by a mutual friend, and I'll never forget one of our first exchanges. I had posted a quote from the Marquis de Sade on my Instagram story, and she responded positively. And from then on, we've been friends.
I'm just so proud of you.
Oh,
it's so
thank
cool.
you.
It's like taking this power that you have and connecting with people at the depths and sharing it.
Yeah, and plus, like, I love that.
Yeah.
Like, all I want to do is sit around and talk about psyche and feelings and, like, philosophize with my friends. And it's what I do.
Yeah.
And I know so many amazing people like yourself who have chosen a path that is less traveled or like a little bit stranger, and I want to expand people and show them what happens when you start choosing yourself,
right?
And
God, amazing.
Following the ache, the yearn, that's inside of you, and like just what could be possible if you like listen to that. But
I think that's very interesting as a premise for a podcast. You know, I think obviously it's personally interesting to me, you know that about me, but so many podcasts now have kind of become these beacons of advice or long interviews to just find nuggets of how do I get to where that person is. And this almost sounds like presentation or demonstration rather.
Yeah, and also I think a permission slip of like, you don't want to get to where this person is.
Right.
Like, the people listening don't want to be Nika or Corrin.
Right.
Like, they want to be themselves.
Right. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And the best, and instead of being prescriptive or being like, here's 10 ways to like become more successful or make more money, it's like, no, what is actually important to you? Because maybe those things aren't even important to you.
Yes.
And digging around in your own mind and being like, what's important to you?
Right.
you have a lot of disciplines, and I think it would be easy to just start rattling off, like, she's an athlete, she's a poet, she's a singer, she's a filmmaker, a screenwriter, she's been on the blacklist, like all these things, right? But I wonder if there's anything that you see as a through line through all the things that you do, like whether it's like an archetype or like whatever it is to you that is the through line, because sure, you do all these different things, but the reality is, like, those are, my guess is, less important than who you are, like, as you do those things.
Right.
And I don't know if you have, like,
that's interesting.
a through line.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about this in the last couple of months. I think I'm about to turn 30, so there's, natural reflection that comes at that point in your life. And I have I've accessed a new level of momentum that I was fighting for a long time. And people are asking these questions of, like, but what do you really want to do? Like, you can't possibly want to do all these things. And I really do. And there probably is some sort of subconscious singularity under it. I'm not totally sure what it is. I think I unlocked a huge understanding of myself and, like, kind of forgiveness and grace toward myself when I started studying philosophy in college. And I speak about it a lot, like, those stories of kids who grew up speaking a language but then they moved away. And then they were like, now they're like, I don't speak any French or whatever the language is. But then it can come back if they immerse themselves into it. When I found philosophy, it felt like that, where I had access to this way that my brain worked that was put into words in a discipline for the first time. And the way that I was taught and, like, academically raised in philosophy was that you're not seeking an answer. You're understanding the dilemma and you're shaping a theory on either side, like an argument on either side. It's almost the inverse of math, And I think I really feel like a philosopher in each of those things that I do. And poetry is like a lyrical, word-based way to do it. I'm really into editing. I've edited all my movies, but I've been editing other people's movies over the last couple of years, and it's so musical to me. And there is this kind of philosophical bent to the way that I edit, where I see that this could be anything. Like, there are 50 movies I could cut here. There is no right answer. There is no correct movie. It's about having a stance on the argument and justifying your stance. And I definitely do that as a screenwriter. I think, I don't know if that is an archetype. I mean, the philosopher is an archetype for sure, right? But I don't know if that totally answers your question, but I think that is certainly the lens that I come at each of these disciplines with.
I feel like in answering that, or in just philosophizing, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, about that, you kind of, it feels like you almost like found something. And again, it's like, I think giving ourselves as people, I was about to say as artists, but I think just as human beings, the permission to like always evolve. So like the whatever quote unquote answer you come to right now, like it doesn't have to be that moving forward. But like what I'm hearing you say is, I'm philosophizing as I'm creating. Yeah. When I step into these roles of the poet, of the singer, of the athlete, of the editor, of the filmmaker, I'm trying out different sides of the argument and committing to them and seeing where it takes me.
Yes, I find them all to be a thought experiment, and I think I love it. I find it very inviting, and I get a bit hardened when I talk to a lot of filmmakers. That's like the gift and the burden of Los Angeles, is anywhere you go, any drinks you have or any coffee, they probably are in the same industry. So I talk to a lot of filmmakers about what they do and what they believe and what they watch. And I think there's this kind of old ethos that directors and writers and auteurs have a vision and a voice. And there's all these, people trying to value judge what they do so they know where they stand. And I just don't think it's not their responsibility. I don't know if it's within the capacity of the artist to identify what they're doing. It's certainly not for me. I don't really know. When I'm writing, I don't really know where it comes from. Definitely with poetry, but also with screenplays. I do a ton of research, especially if it's a project that requires that, but I don't know. I feel less and less responsible for what comes out. I feel less and less like the arbiter of the piece and more like the messenger.
The channel.
Yeah.
So for you with that process, it sounds like what you're committed to is the experience of the process. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to lead you there or say like, oh, this is what you mean. But
yeah, what
I'm hearing is like, there's an experience that you're looking to have.
Totally. Yes. I think in a backwards way, it's become that because I just haven't had the huge success or like the cake at the end of the recipe. So I'm enjoying the baking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it's become an affect of my circumstance, and I'm a pretty positive, happy, grateful person. So it's this thing, not to say I'm without ache, because we will get there. There's plenty of ache, but it's just this thing of like, yeah, if you don't enjoy the process, like fuck off. It's such a hard, terrible, corrupt, meritless industry. So if you're not enjoying the process, go get your bag, girl. Like, go to law school or anywhere else. Like, it's not worth it if you're not enjoying the process.
No, I agree completely, because it's not. I had something written down about like career. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was like art. I like to think a lot about like art as healing, art as a hypersigil, art as like something that is representative of your psyche, like a Rorschach test almost. I mean, the completed art, I guess, is a Rorschach test for the viewer, but like, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's a manifestation often of some part of you that you're coming to terms with. And I think what we're talking about with career and the industry being like fucked, in terms of being just like create a product for the business, which great, we love business, we love products.
Yes. But
also make it artistic, and like there's all these contradicting things. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I guess like to be in this industry, to stay here, to do this, like there has to be purpose is the wrong word. I don't like being like, oh, what's the purpose? What's your purpose? And like you just came around to, you're like, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
Because the purpose is the process.
Yeah.
But outside of like the career aspects or the like bigger goals, the cake at the end, like, is there something for you that initially drew you to this? Or like, did you always know when you were a child, like, oh, I'm a performer, I'm an entertainer, I'm creating stories? Or was it something that you came to later?
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't grow up in circumstances where it felt available to me, so I had never really considered it. You know, I grew up in a really small town acting on stage, but, you know, had this life as an athlete and had jobs as a kid and was really good at school. So I applied to college to be a doctor and thought, well, if I don't do well in that, then I'll go to law school. Like, I just was an academic, and it didn't seem possible to be an artist. I didn't know any artists. I didn't know that was something people could be. Like, the artists were kind of this other class of being, like this other species. And then, I have this like realization daily. It's so trite, but it's just this thing where you look around and you're like, oh no, I'm here. Like, this is happening. And like, that's a person, and this is a tangible thing. And nobody, I mean, there are people that are like, I always knew I was going to be a star. And it's one thing to feel like a performer always. I always felt connected to performance. But the word star kind of has this relationship with the audience and the industry. And I just had no idea that I could ever access that. not that I really have, but like in a small way, I definitely
You have. I think you're very prolific in, you've made like so many films. You've created works that people consume.
Right.
Regularly.
Thank you. Yes, that is true. And I think I was in college. I ended up switching my major to philosophy because I had this kind of profound fluency in it that was so helpful to me and my aches and my anger. And I shifted my whole future and didn't really know where it was going to go. And then got out of school only having had experience in acting. And I started to get into art films and foreign films in college, as you do if you're like a nerd, and thought, well, I'd like to act in those movies. How do I do that? And I had to make them because nobody was going to give it to me. So I wrote and directed and edited my first short film when I was 19 so that I could act in a movie that was of that kind of tone and way of thinking, and then never stopped doing that. So I don't know. I mean, of course, when you move to LA and you start to learn about the way the industry works, you start to have these tangible goals of, I want to get a manager, I want to get on the blacklist, or I want to sell this script or get this producer. Yes, I want to make the movies that I want to make. It's not as much like I want people to watch my movies.
You want the experience of making the film.
Yeah.
I resonate with that hardcore.
You do?
I always think about, like I don't really think about the film coming out. And this could be, you could see this with my entire library of works, because sometimes I don't even release these things,
yes,
which I need to get better at.
Yes.
But because I would like to have the financing to make more things, right?
Right.
But it's a game in my mind of like, how do I just get back on set? Like, how do I just be like making a thing? Like,
exactly.
With people that I am inspired by or think are like,
yes,
because I want to feel that.
Yes, it's a singular experience that is not recreated anywhere. The making, particularly of films, I think there's something similar because I work in the theater as well as an actor, and there's something similar in the theater. You have lots of experience in theater, you know that. But I talk to filmmakers about a lot and have been almost, like, this is too big of a word, but theorizing about for about 4 years, is the relationship to the audience. And in LA, in Hollywood, executives and producers will always ask you, who's the audience for this? Or they'll give you notes on the script and they'll be like, I'm not sure the audience will do this or will do that, or what do you want the audience to feel? And I have this very radical theory that I argue with filmmakers around the world about, that it's not my fucking problem. Like, and I mean that with the utmost respect and love. I am the audience for all the movies, and I love being the audience, and I hate it when a filmmaker is trying to manipulate me.
Oh, I love that, because I always talk about like trusting the audience or being like, don't. And I have that same experience in a movie where I feel like I'm being led too hard, like I'm being pulled towards something, and I'm like, can you let me have my own experience? It's like when people try to put on a version of themselves to get you to like them.
Totally.
And you're like, I don't even like you because this is fake, because you're trying to get me to like you.
Just the fact that you're doing that at all, let alone the two versions of your personality.
It's not sexy.
It's not sexy. It's so sexy to trust somebody to be what they are and to receive them as to who they are. And I trust the audience with my whole being. So if they, and I also, like with a lover or with a friend, I don't expect everyone to love me. I'm not for everybody. And I think Hollywood, especially the executives and producers, but also the filmmakers, can't be trying to make the movie for everyone. And then they're like, no, we're not. We're trying to make it for girls who are 18 to 25. And it's like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, I've never met two girls 18 to 25 who are the same. Like,
or who have the same interests, or like,
yes.
It's just when we're all at a different place in our journey. I talked to my mom about this recently, because my mom was saying, oh, I'm going through something now that you already went through.
Whoa.
Of like beginning to like accept herself or like create her own set of beliefs. And this is a conversation we had like a little while ago, but she was like, yeah, you already, it seems like you already went through this. And now I'm just starting to go through this.
Totally.
And
That's
we're
a
at completely
perfect
different life
example.
stages.
Yeah. Yeah. But it happens to people in different ways at different times. So this lumping in of statistical categories of they're going to like this, I just don't believe it to be true. So I refuse to cater to it. And, you know, back to that thing of we both are really interested in the process. And that's what I love so much. I hope people watch my movies and like them. It moves me to bits when people find my short films online and have something to say. I mean, but that's so cherries on top of the cake, like the ice cream, whatever people eat for dessert. Like, it's not at all what I'm doing. And I think movies will be better if people are thinking about the characters and not thinking about the audience.
I love that. Can I ask you about your anger?
Totally.
Because you said, oh, my anger.
Uh-huh.
And I think that goes along with like one thing I want to talk to you and everyone else that comes on about is like the aspects of yourself that you like are at war with or were at war with or were not feeling like it was okay. I don't want to tell you what your experience with it was, but like talk to me about you and anger and the relationship.
Yes. Fun. Okay. I can't remember a time when I wasn't angry as a kid. And not blanket statement every waking hour, but I always had anger. My parents will tell you, like, I was a big, bold, loud kid who threw fits. And I think it was in my body. Like, my parents, it's such a beautiful thing. They talk about babies have a personality the second that they're born. And I was born dehydrated. So I was like screaming. And my grandmother, my mom's mom, was like, she needs water. And all the nurses were like, no, you give the baby milk. And she was like, this girl needs water. And then they gave me water and I was okay. So I truly came out screaming and had screaming night terrors as a kid, like in the middle of the night screaming. Like it was just really this like ancestral rage that was in my bones. And my parents are not angry. Like, I don't know what that is, but I just believe it was innate to me. It was very effective in sports. As you know about me personally, I was a big athlete. I did many sports, sometimes at the same time. They used to call me the linebacker on my soccer team. Like, I was really not that skilled, but had so much endurance to run and just fight to the death for the ball. So there was a healthy way that it was channeled, I would say. I was not getting in fights at school or anything, but I think if I hadn't grown up with a dad who was an athlete who knew to put me there, if I was in the wrong environment, it could have been bad. Like, I was that angry. And I think a lot of it came, you know, like, it changes as you get older. It's different when you're 4 and throwing a fit versus when you're 14 and you're like raging against the machine. And I think a lot of it came from kind of being misunderstood by people, but also by myself. And it continues to get easier, just like being alive, the more that I don't resist my instincts and my personality.
And your anger, question mark?
And, well, I'm not that angry anymore. I'm really, really, really angry philosophically. And I don't know if that will ever go away. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm gonna go there. Like, even thinking about it makes me mad. Like, the thought that we have these systems that are built and, oh, well, that's the rule, so it's gonna be like this. The Supreme Court said that now the president can be a felon, so that's the rule. What the fuck are you talking about? Who wrote the rule? Like, what? That kind of thing makes me furious. And it's not because I don't have an understanding of the way that politics are and laws and systems. It's like, no, all of us have just decided that we're not going to change the Electoral College. Is that what we're doing? The last time that a Republican president won the popular vote was like 1996. Like, I don't even know the number because it's been so long. It's you can hear it in my voice. It makes me furious. So I'm really fucking angry at systems.
I think we have a judgment on anger
Sure.
in our society, especially with women, that like maybe it's a bad thing.
Right.
And like it seems like it's not a bad thing. Like it seems like it made you
It
amazing
certainly
at
made me
sports.
who I am, and some people like that. So yeah, I have no interest in I have no interest in getting rid of my anger, because I've accepted my personality for what it is finally, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think, I got distracted by the Electoral College. I'm sorry, but my anger was really, really, really internal and systemic growing up. And I would be angry with other people, but take it out on myself. And as I started studying philosophy, I got to college early. I had just turned 17. That was the beginning of the anger quelling. But then I got to LA, and the system of LA and the system of entertainment, I mean...
You think you're coming here to like get free or something? Like, I don't know. For me, I was like, oh, I'm going to like go be an artist.
Yeah, no.
And then I come here and I was like, oh, it's like worse.
It's a capitalist factory. Like, it's horrifying. It's really bad. You want to be a free artist, you go to Paris, you go to Berlin. Like, they still have that culture and that space and that respect for the artists. I think there's no respect for artists in America. They are doing value assessments. It's not a meritocracy. In certain branches of certain phases, it is. And I maybe I'm being optimistic, but I do believe that there are certain filmmakers that get to make a certain kind of film and then are reinforced on that path, which is beautiful and what would ultimately be the end goal for me, because it would, self-sustain with the financing of the next film.
Because once you've done something that's quote unquote seen as successful or whatever, then you're like, you can do the
next one. Exactly. Yeah. But I think, the anger got a lot better in college, and then it came out in a new way in LA. And then I'm in a pretty good place with it over the last, I would say, like 3 or 4 years personally. And now my anger is all systemic, which is a relief. But I am like a fervent workaholic, which you know about me personally. It's like, all I'm ever doing is working. And I think that's kind of that same angry energy being funneled and put into the right place. I said something like, my parents aren't angry. My dad's really angry, but he's just a lot older, so he's got his shit together. But we would, I screamed at both my parents and they screamed at me back. I was put in timeout. Like, I was disciplined for sure. But my dad is so similar to me that he would do the thing that is the worst, which is laugh at me. Which, like, he's right. It was ridiculous. I'd be raging, whether it was about a person or a system or a thing, and he'd just laugh. He'd be like, what do you think you're doing? Like, you're throwing a fit and it's going to fix it? Like, go do something. Or, like, go chill. No, you're not doing anything by throwing a fit. And it was so infuriating, but it was so wise. And that I have that peace now, which rocks.
Because it's generative. Anger is like not it's not like depression or sadness where it's like pulling you down. Like anger's like driving you and pushing you.
Yes.
And like I always think about, like, I heard someone say once, if you're angry, if you have this, like, if you're ready to like pick a fight or like find a problem, find a fault, criticize someone, like get really worked up over something, now, I don't know if this is true or not. I just thought it was interesting as a concept. They were like, this is because you have energy that wants to go somewhere. And It's just looking for an outlet. And it's like, you get to pick what that outlet is.
Yes.
And I think, it sounds like as you've grown up or like matured, quote unquote, you're choosing different outlets or like choosing.
Yeah. I mean, for a long time, I was the outlet. I would take it out on myself in various degrees of terrible ways. And then I was able to find these other outlets at the same time, which now have dominated, which would be sports, sex, and work. And I completely agree with that theory. It's all of this energy. I have so much fucking energy. And luckily I'm like a good egg. I don't want to do bad things, but I want to do things constantly and with so much passion and energy. And so I think it comes out in all of those ways.
Wow, I'm like listening to you talk and I'm just having so many thoughts and like resonance, you know, because I'm similar.
Yeah.
My energy flows differently than yours, but like I have a lot of it, and those are my sports are not my
well, rock climbing is,
I do rock climb.
Yeah, that isn't. I could never rock climb.
I do rock climb. It's like a mental, like, I think it's the Capricorn in me. You get it, where it's like I like to build that one at a time. One hold, all right, the next hold, all right. Like I'm building a foundation, you know, that's secure.
Yes.
But what I was gonna say is even what you're saying about like, oh, I find good outlets. Even the labeling of good outlets.
Yeah, for sure.
Of like somebody like, okay, we don't love the man, but Donald Trump, like I feel like he thinks he's doing the right thing. Or like some of these people are like, or my people that I grew up with in the religion being like going to Los Angeles, going to pursue these dreams, having sex premaritally, that's bad.
Sure.
And then me being out here like living a unique life, but like not that unique. Or, you know, my family, certain members of my family believe that intimacy coordination is bad.
Wow.
It's like devilish. And then I'm like in this position that Hollywood views as like an HR position, basically. Totally. And so anyway, I'm listening to you talking. I'm like, you were like, yeah, sex, projects, athletes, these are good outlets.
Right.
And
defense you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, they are good outlets in comparison to how I used to take it out on myself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they're good outlets.
Yeah.
My value judgment is that they're very good.
No, but I hear what you mean. Yeah, I think they're comparatively better than the way I used to act with my anger.
But it's also only you that gets to make that decision. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. Is being like, you're the only person that gets to decide whether those activities are positive, quote unquote, or negative, quote unquote, for you.
Yes. I'm thinking now about who else would it be, right? When you say it's only you. And I'm also thinking like, I think I have a lot of friends who will be surprised to hear me talk about my anger, because I don't present it to a lot of people because I'm putting it in these specific places. And I now have a better relationship with it where I can do that, you know? I think if you knew me when I was 10, it'd be like, she's a fucking live wire. Like, she's so intense. And I probably still come off very intense, but I think in a different way. I don't know that people would know about my long relationship to anger.
I resonate with that.
Yeah.
I think people don't associate me with that, but that's my biggest emotion that I feel aligned with.
Totally. I think this is probably like a sister of anger, but frustration 7 times a day.
Oh, that's your human design not self.
Yeah. Okay, tell me more. What?
You're a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your not self in human design is like an emotional signal.
Okay.
That you're kind of like going in a direction that's like off your path, right?
Wow.
And it's frustration for generators and manifesting generators, and satisfaction is your like self theme. So like when you find satisfaction, it's like a signal that you're like more aligned with your like design.
Whoa.
Versus frustration is like this signal that you're like pushing against your design.
That makes sense. I have a long-standing relationship to frustration.
Mine is bitterness, projector.
Whoa, you're a projector.
I'm a projector. Yeah.
So good for podcasting. Oh my God.
Like obsessed with like looking at other people and being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Great for writing too.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wow.
Projectors make good like leaders if everyone's bought in too. Yes. Like it's like I have to be in a space where people are like ready for that.
Right.
Or else it's just like, what is this bitch doing? Like,
right.
She's intense, quote unquote, or too much, right? Because I'm like barreling into the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. I will walk into a space and make it ready for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have that confidence about you, and like it's a thing. I think confidence is a choice, I think, of just being like, okay, I'm gonna be myself in this space. I'm gonna walk in and make it ready for me.
Yeah.
But you're someone that I see as very confident or very like assured, at least in the choices you're making. You don't apologize for who you are or like what you're doing.
Thank you. Yes, it didn't work. I think for a long time, I always had at least part of me presenting confident and assured, which I think, especially as a teenager and stuff, I felt very secure in my intellect. And so I always had that I was confident in, but like sense of self, body image, like emotional things was a disaster. And it turned like very recently, but it's been a slow incline this whole time climbing toward it. And it just doesn't work, at least in my experience, to not be assured and not be confident, especially with the work that, our work is different, but it's the same field. If you don't implore them to trust you and let you do it on the big scale, but also on the small scale, you walk into a friend's short film and you're like, I'm going to act this part and this is how I'm going to do it. For me, it doesn't work unless I'm assured and confident. So I think it's a Capricorn thing of like, what's the most effective way here?
I love that. Was there a transition? Like, did you start at a different place where you were still looking around for permission? Like, were you ever looking around for permission?
That's a great question. I've never, ever, ever looked around for permission. Never.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's something that I feel about you.
Yes.
And I think one of the reasons I'm drawn to you, I'm extremely drawn to people that do not ask for permission, because it's the aspect of me that I, as a child, very much did not ask for. Like, I was like doing whatever the fuck. Yeah. And then Hollywood shifted me. Yes. Like, coming here, acting especially, and like writing, looking for people to, stamp of approval my work so that I could get the financing to make it or get cast in the part. I started thinking, oh, maybe it's more appropriate for me to be looking around for permission, which is why I ask you if you ever felt that, but you say no.
No, never. I mean, I could say a million things about that. My dad really didn't have that many rules for me. I was super, super self-disciplined from an early age, which I still am, as you know about me. So I didn't have to ask for permission because I was like, I'm going to get straight A's. I'm going to be on 3 sports teams so that I can get into this college because I'm going to make this life for myself. So I didn't have to ask for permission in any of those kind of normal upbringing ways. And then I wanted to be this actress in these certain kinds of films, and nobody was giving them to me. So I was like, well, I'll make them. It didn't even cross my mind to ask for permission. I don't even know who you would ask, I'm laughing even at the thought of it. I don't even get it really, but that's all that to say, like, it's not that effective because I don't have any real like standard industry success. I mean, I'm starting to now, but it doesn't really work if your goals are to be a movie star, to direct this movie or whatever. My goals were never that. My goals were, I want to act in European slanted philosophical indie film. And I've just made them for 10 years. And then friends will cast me in theirs, or I'll edit that one, or I'll produce that one. And that's what I wanted. So no, asking for permission, I don't even know what that means. And I would get so angry and so frustrated trying to be a writer and director on the real scale, real, whatever that means. And I still am, because you have to get all these people's permission. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to think about it? I'm ready.
Are you on or are you off the train because it's moving?
Great fucking question. How'd you know that?
It's not a question. It's not. I meant more. That's what you're saying to these people. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny because I heard it as a question.
Tell me what it brought up.
have this momentum now in a real way from real companies, and I'm kind of like doing other stuff.
Do you feel resistant to like?
Yeah.
What it might mean to like get on the train with a company of like, oh God, am I going to have to start doing what they want me to do?
Yeah. Yes.
This is my fear.
Yes. I mean, I shouldn't throw shade. There's a company working on my water polo script that is amazing, and I love them. But it's probably two things. First is like, you're so used to trying to get somewhere that when you get there, you're like, well, aren't I supposed to be running at 100 miles an hour? Like, what do you mean I'm here? I don't get it. So it's probably that kind of disorienting thing. And then just a super normal fear that, you know, if you have a bad boyfriend, then you're dating someone good, then you are waiting for them to be bad because you expect all boyfriends to be bad.
Yes.
So I think it's probably that fear of like, when are you going to tell me I have to rewrite it and add this character or take away that character? Like, when are you going to tell me I can't do it this way? And they haven't done that. But it's probably resistance because of those two things. I was like editing somebody's short film all week, not doing anything for my movies, you know? Like, I think there is a little bit of like, fuck this system that didn't want me for so long and now you want me. But all that to be said, I still want to make these movies on a real scale with real people, and the people I'm working with are amazing. But I definitely have that kind of, oh, now you fucking want me thing. And I'll do it. And I'm gonna do it. And I'm thrilled and I'm grateful. And all that's true. But I'm seeing myself not running at 100 miles an hour toward this door that's now open. I'm seeing the doors open, so now I'm like catching my breath and walking toward it. Which arguably is super healthy. I don't know.
And it's a different way of behaving.
Yeah.
Than you have in the past.
Yes.
Which, you know, it's that classic, whose quote is it? If like you can't get the same, is it Einstein?
Einstein, the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Exactly. So it's like you've been not accepted by the wider industry up until this point. Now you are being accepted to change the behavior. Makes sense.
Totally.
And experiment with that, because at the end of the day, we're like souls having this weird experience. Yeah. And like, who cares if right. the trappings of material success, because that's also a system that we've bought into with money and like all these things. And
yes, that's obviously, I said 2 reasons for this resistance. Obviously the third is like, I am so wired against systems, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't trust them.
Me too. I don't. Anytime. It's so funny too, given like what I do for a living. It's like I'm living my shadow integration, doing intimacy coordination.
You feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because I was so like against the rules, against the system. I almost like am now living the opposite of it so that I can have the secret rebel life in a way. Like I think like now it's like, oh, I'm the intimacy coordinator. I'm here to like uphold the rules or whatever. But none of you know like what my real life is like and what I'm doing like at night with like Sweven or like all these other things that I do. And it's like, why? Because my lizard brain is used to having like a deviant undercurrent that people don't know about. Before I was Christian, and my deviant undercurrent was that I had all these like kinky sexual fantasies and all these things. And then now I'm living, now it's like I'm creating this HR persona for myself so that I can have like a deviant.
It's so funny. People are amazingly simple. You know, it's like, it's very simple math on that. And it's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. And I think to like recognize it too is like, we'll see what happens for me moving forward. If it's an indication that like things are going to shift into a new direction, because it was unconscious for a long time.
Right. You know, now that you see it.
Yeah. I'm obsessed, as you know, with like the concept of shadow work and shadow integration, like making the unconscious conscious.
Yes.
The what's the Jung quote? The unconscious will rule your life and you will call it fate.
Wow.
And it's like this idea that like if we don't make our unconscious patterns conscious, we think, oh, the universe is just conspiring against me.
Wow.
I'm not getting these things that I want in my career. But really, like some part of me, you perhaps has an alignment or a love of being seen as like the underdog, or like I am working so hard.
Yes. I've suffered from all of those examples. Yes. That's fascinating. And, you know, we've talked for 10 minutes about me being furious at systems, and it's like, you chose a system and you're mad that you're not in the system. You hate the systems. Like, what do you know, there's a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also the alignment with the anger at the systems is probably a thing too. Like, if there's no system to rage against, like,
right,
where is your identity?
Right. And what happens when the system accepts you? Can you still be angry? I think that's definitely what's going on for me now. That's hard.
It's exciting too.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's like, it's dicey though, man. It's dicey. You know, I'm not screaming about the Electoral College when the candidate I want wins. Like, that's the most simple example and obvious. I still am, because I still think it's not representative of people. But, you know, that concept of, that's really like the philosophical soundness of an argument. It's like, do you mean that always? Or do you only mean that when that works for you? And I think about that a lot. And I still, like, the Blacklist is a great example. It doesn't make me love Hollywood because I was, like, ushered into this institution. It doesn't make me forget what infuriates me about the system. But it is working for me now. And I am getting momentum because of this systemic marker. And I'm super aware of that. I don't really know what's to be done about it, but I'm thinking about it all the time.
Maybe just that.
Right.
Or enjoy, or just like feeling it.
Yeah.
Like you said just a couple minutes ago, human beings are simple.
Right.
We do like to, and what we're doing right now, ideate about it, philosophize about it, label it, decide this is what this is my journey. But at the end of the day, like, we're feeling,
right,
we're having experiences, and maybe it's just like, also on the other side of the coin, maybe it's just a new experience.
Yes.
For learning and growing or whatever.
Yes, and sometimes awareness of a thing is all that you need, right? And I think my anger and relationship is specifically to the Hollywood industry. There are things that I do every day that are small acts of resistance. There are bigger ways that I'd like to be if I were integrated into it that would be bigger acts of resistance, just in who I hire and where I'm put the money that is given to me. And you just have to know what you believe and then act upon your beliefs, I think.
It's so interesting too, because I understand why we're saying these are acts of resistance, because we're categorizing them as acts of resistance against a system, the Hollywood system. But to me, when I hear you say that, I'm like, that's not an act of resistance. That's an act of adherence to your natural state.
Mm-hmm.
You are not resisting your natural state.
Well, totally. Totally. I think it's both. I think when I don't resist my natural state, it's against this system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to reconcile, and I'm sure this is true for you too, but I won't answer for you.
Yes.
I have to reconcile my distaste with the way this economy functions with my personal and artistic ambitions. Because guess what? I can sit and fucking wax poetic about how it's not a meritocracy and people's voices aren't heard and money's spent in the wrong place. It's not going to change the system, and I still want to make movies. Mm-hmm. And movies are a very expensive medium. I wish I was a painter every damn day, but I am not a painter. And I need cameras and lenses and lights and locations and crafty. Like, you just can't. That's another act of resistance of mine, is I make short films for $1,000. And you get that. You've done it many times. Like, it's psychotic and it's not the same thing, but it's me doing everything I can to keep making the art I want to without having to wait or get permission, mm-hmm, or bend. I will not bend. So much of my life, I know your life, just rejections from money or access or representation or festivals or whatever. It's an offering of like, it's not this, so what are you going to do? Are you going to stop making films? Are you going to whine? Are you going to be jealous? Are you going to go watch every other movie that got in and shit on those filmmakers with your friends at coffee? No. What's that for? Like, for me, all of those no's and like resistance from the industry toward me have given me a stronger and narrower avenue to myself.
And it sounds like a clearer path also, because if all of those things said yes, you wouldn't have time for all that shit.
No.
And you would be running around even crazier. Yes, you are the queen of having the most energy anyone ever had. But you would be running around crazy with nothing left.
Yeah, forget it.
So it's a sieve, like
Totally.
bringing you to your
Yes.
real path.
The rejections are definitely a sieve, if you let them be. It's very, very easy to, first of all, stand in your own way, which I've been thinking about constantly, but also to use things as an excuse. Like, that's super judgy of me to say. I don't know how to say it without that value judgment, but like, it's easy to take any sort of input, whether that's a rejection or a note or whatever that is, and then plant it in your path as an obstacle and then turn around or sit there. And that's my biggest power, is I fucking refuse to sit there. The book that we were teasing, it's called Hand Fetish. It's a book of 35mm photography of hands with original poems. I'm talking to a publishing company in Paris, but I'm being patient with that because I'm kind of only been writing poetry for about 5 years, so I just want to be respectful of the entire medium as I think about putting out a book. But that poem will be in the book. And I have a substack where I publish some poems, a lot of photography, essays. I have a whole essay on the relationship to the audience, that thing we were talking about earlier. And you can see all of my short films on my website, and they're linked on my Instagram, just my name. And I made a feature film that's on Amazon, and my Instagram is Brindisi. It's an Italian like romantic farce, which is so funny. But I was, we were young and we really meant it, and I'm so grateful for that movie. And yeah, everything's online. I'm out there.
Fuck yeah. Thank you.
Did we do it?
Yeah, we did it.
Oh my god, how cool. Wow, I like blacked out. It felt like 5 minutes.
I wonder how long we've been doing this.
No idea.
Let's see, it's 1 p.m.
Oh wow.
We started at what?
Well, I got here right on time, like a good girl.
Look at you. Oh my god. Okay.
Thank you for listening to The Ache. This podcast is produced by myself, Corrin Evans, and Alexis Murphy. All the music you hear is original compositions by my friend Peter Colombo. All other pertinent information will be linked in the show notes, and thank you for listening.